If you're wondering why this video is coming on a Wednesday instead of a Friday, let me explain. It's March 27th today. It's been one full year since the first Pokemon video I've uploaded on this channel. In the past year, I've achieved some greatness that I never thought was possible, such as earning over 1,100 subscribers, getting my videos monetized, and rebuilding my online presence for the better. While I made a great effort coming out of my shell to make these videos, it was you guys liking and commenting on my videos along with subscribing. That alone helped me get this far, and I'm eternally thankful. But anyways, in this video I'm going to show you a truly ideal team for Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow. This team will feature 3 Pokemon that'll have some of the best moves they can learn, and it'll be Pokemon that are readily accessible within all 3 versions. Like much earlier, the best starter for this team will be Venusaur. Just like much earlier, we'll go with a handful of rules for this challenge. No using glitches, no items in battle, no trade evolutions, no post-game Pokemon, no version exclusives, and no time machine moves. Though version exclusives are okay for HMs, however. So now that I explained what I'll cover, let's jump right into this challenge. Just like much earlier, we'll catch some temporary Pokemon that'll help us get across challenges our main team isn't able to. We'll catch a grass type that'll cut down bushes, we'll catch a flying type to help us fly across the map, we'll also get a water type that'll swim across bodies of water, and we'll also get a fighting type that can push boulders aside. Those Pokemon will help us build our team and to get across challenges our main team can't do alone. Beginning the main list, we have our starter, Venusaur. Like I said a while back, Venusaur is the ideal starter because it has well-rounded stats, a great moveset, and is powerful against most of Kanto's challenges. The way to get Venusaur is very simple. Soon after you begin the game, Professor Oak takes you to his lab. After he speaks with you, choose the Pokeball containing Bulbasaur. Then during your journey, train up Bulbasaur to level 16 to get Ivysaur, then train again to level 32 to get Venusaur. Different from before, a great moveset for Venusaur will need more thought. Starting off as a Bulbasaur, its first move will be Tackle and Growl, learning Leech Seed at level 7 while getting Vine Whip at level 13. The next move we'll need for Ivysaur will be getting TM8 from SSN, which contains Body Slam. Then you should replace Growl with Body Slam since Tackle is more useful than Growl. Then at level 30, replace Tackle with Razor Leaf. It'll give Ivysaur one of its very best moves since Razor Leaf always critical hits. Then much later at level 55, replace Vine Whip with Sleep Powder, which will give Venusaur its best and last move. After training up Venusaur during your journey, its finalized moveset should contain Razor Leaf, Body Slam, Leech Seed, and Sleep Powder. I chose to keep Leech Seed this long since it'll help Venusaur early on during its journey. Draining health from Pokemon that resist its grass moves is extremely helpful. Up next we have the triple-headed bird from earlier, Dodrio. Similar to earlier, Dodrio is great because of its sky-high attack and speed. Another thing helping Dodrio is having access to great normal moves. The way to get Dodrio is kinda simple. After you get to Celadon City, go to the route before cycling road. Cut down the bush at the fence and enter the tall grass to search for Doduo. Then during your journey, train up Doduo to level 31 to get Dodrio. Also similar to Venusaur, a great moveset for Dodrio will need some change to be great. Starting off as Doduo, its first move will be Peck, then learning Growl at level 20 while getting Fury Attack at level 24, then getting Drill Peck at level 30. The next move we'll need for Dodrio will be TM10 from Team Rocket's Hideout, which contains Double Edge. Replace Fury Attack with Double Edge since it'll be a far stronger move. Next we'll replace Peck with TM6 from completing Koga's Gym, which contains Toxic. That'll give Dodrio an edge over the usually scary Psychic types. Last up, we'll replace Growl with TM15 from the Rocket Game Corner for 5,500 coins. That TM contains Hyper Beam, which will let Dodrio dish out massive damage against Psychic types. After training up Dodrio for the league, its finalized moveset should contain Drill Peck, Double Edge, Hyper Beam, and Toxic. Drill Peck will stay on Dodrio's moveset the whole time due to how great the move is. It helps Dodrio hit hard against grass types that Venusaur would struggle against. Last on the list, we have the Snowy Siren, Jinx. What makes Jinx great is having high special and speed along with a great special attacking type combo. The way to get Jinx is a bit tricky. Soon after you completed Pokemon Tower at Lavender Town, you should go to Fuchsia City and get the Good Rod from the Fishing Guru. Then fly to Pallet Town and fish for a Poliwag and train it up to level 25 to get Poliwhirl. Then fly to Cerulean City and trade the Poliwhirl with the Old Man to get a Jinx. Also, Jinx can't evolve. The usual moveset for Jinx will start off with Pound and Lovely Kiss, but we'll have to get different moves added. First we'll give Jinx TM13 from the Celadon Department Store's rooftop, which contains Ice Beam. Then we'll head to Saffron City and meet the Psychic who has TM29, which contains what his specialty is. Ice Beam and Psychic will be very helpful for Jinx since it needs to utilize its special types to the fullest. Next up, replace Pound with TM11 from completing Missy's Gym, which contains Bubble Beam. Might not be a strong move, but it's perfect coverage to help Jinx against strong fire types. Lastly, we'll do an unexpected thing by replacing Lovely Kiss with TM19, which contains Seismic Toss. Lovely Kiss has 75 accuracy, which makes Jinx a sitting duck if it misses. Whereas Venusaur's Sleep Powder also has 75 accuracy, it can utilize Sleep far better. Jinx can utilize Seismic Toss to do level-based damage to Psychic types Venusaur can't handle alone, which makes for great synergy. Finally, we move on to the best matchups that our 3 Pokemon would have, but unlike any time before, we'll just show some of the matchups in action. The first fight with the rival took 2 attempts, and that's my fault. First time around, I had Bulbasaur use Growl a few times and sometimes use Tackle. Big problem there is that the rival has his Charmander use Growl a lot, making it to where our Bulbasaur can't do much damage. Second attempt, I had Bulbasaur use Tackle the whole battle while Charmander mostly used Scratch, allowing me a far easier victory. The battle with Brock started off as a stall battle, but it later became a laughably easy battle. Against the Geodude, I started off with Leech Seed, then went for Tackle. Turns out that Tackle didn't do good damage to a rock type, so I chose to go for Growl. It's far more helpful, especially when you have no grass attacks and need to outlast such a physically strong opponent. Soon after my Bulbasaur defeats Geodude, it gained Vine Whip. When Onix came out, it went for Bite on its first turn. It didn't matter since Vine Whip is super effective against both of Onix's types. That advantage gave me the first gym badge. Up next is a battle that most people struggle with, a battle that's the typical beginner's trap. The second rival battle features a Pidgeotto, Abra, Rattata, and whatever starter is strong against what you picked. This battle is usually problematic due to the rival's Pidgeotto having Sand Attack to lower your accuracy along with Gust and Quick Attack hitting the player's Pokemon kinda hard. My first attempt of Rival 2 started off with Leech Seed, but almost every move my Ivysaur did missed. My Ivysaur might have beaten the Pidgeotto, but it lost to the Rattata not much later. Second attempt worked far better due to leading with Rattata, but what really helped here is Pidgeotto not using Sand Attack nearly as much. There's not much to say about the Abra since it can't attack, and despite the rival's Rattata going for Quick Attack, it still went down from 2 Vine Whips. Up next is the rival's Charmander, and it's a close call. We land a Hyper Fang that does great damage to the Charmander, but it gets a critical hit on Scratch, which is bad for us. Then our second Hyper Fang misses, and it's looking real bad until the Charmander goes for Growl, and funnily enough, even that move missed. Our third Hyper Fang hits, which gives us a narrow victory over the rival. It's very important to train up for any battle, especially the rival. Next up, the battle against Misty is delayed by a junior trainer, who has a Goldeen. Normally this Goldeen is annoying, but we get lucky here. Our Rattata goes for Hyper Fang, which does about half to the Goldeen. Then the Goldeen goes for Peck, which didn't do too much. Then we land a critical hit Hyper Fang, the best outcome we've had the whole run. Now that our Rattata has reached level 20, it's become Eradicate. Outside of Nidoking, Raticate's one of the strongest Pokemon we can get this early. But of course, we haven't challenged Misty yet, so here we go. Misty starts off with a Staryu and somehow she puts an X-Defend on it. That won't help against my Ivysaur using Vine Whip, especially when it got a critical hit there. Up next is Misty's Starmie, the biggest beginner's trap in the game due to it having decent attack along with high special and speed. Starmie starts off with a Tackle since we can't resist normal, but we go for a Leech Seed. Despite Starmie outspeeding our Ivysaur, its Tackle only got a critical hit once. From that point onward, we win from using Vine Whip 3 times. Now at the SSN, we face the third rival battle. Despite our rival having evolved as Abra, Rattata, and Starter, we have a far easier time due to our Pokemon getting stronger from other trainer battles. Our rival begins with Pidgeotto once more as we start with our own Raticate, but funnily enough, both of us miss our moves the first turn. Our second Hyper Fang lands and gets a critical hit, which is great considering how annoying Pidgeotto usually is. Then the rival sends out his own Raticate and we switch to Ivysaur. While it went for Quick Attack on turn 1, we knock out the Raticate with 2 Body Slams. Then when Kadabra comes out, we switch to Eradicate and go for Dig. While Kadabra can be powerful with psychic moves, its biggest weakness is physical moves. Lastly, our rival sends out Charmeleon and we repeat Dig against it, getting us a quick, easy victory. Moving on, we challenge Lieutenant Surge's gym. While the battles there are very easy, the gym puzzle is definitely a different story. To have full access to the trash can's patterns, I'm gonna have to defeat all the trainers in the gym. Since my Ivysaur's evolved into a Venusaur, this'll take no time at all. The real challenge is with trying to shut off the locks at Lieutenant Surge's door, and with the first lock's location being randomized, it'll take a guide to figure out where the second lock is. But even with the guide, it still took 5 tries to get the locks deactivated. So when it comes to Lieutenant Surge's gym, the puzzle is the actual challenge. But now that we deactivated the locks, we face Lieutenant Surge and mop the floor with most of his team. His Voltorb and Pikachu get instantly knocked out by our Venusaur's Body Slam, though his Raichu hangs on from a Body Slam. Then Raichu goes for Thunderbolt soon afterwards, and we get paralyzed from it. Though, luckily, the paralysis doesn't affect our Venusaur, letting its Vine Whip defeat Raichu. Unlucky status aside, the battle against Lieutenant Surge was a cakewalk, just as easy as everyone says. Up next, the battle against Erica is also delayed by a beauty who has an execute. One Drill Peck is more than enough to win the short battle, leading us to Erica herself. Her whole team is a cakewalk if you have a strong flying type or have some good normal moves. And despite her Victory Bell having Razor Leaf and Sleep Powder, it doesn't matter since our Dodrio knocks it out and the Tangela in one hit respectively. Lastly, when her Vileplume comes out, our Dodrio instantly defeated the Vileplume with a critical hit Drill Peck. That alone gave us the quickest win we've had at a gym battle so far. Moving on to the Rocket Game Corner, we battle against a slew of Rocket Grunts. The ones at the 4th gate aren't much to talk about since all they have are Ekans and Sandshrew. The only strong Pokemon they have are Sandslash and Arbok, but we can still handle those easily. The battle against Giovanni is also lackluster. While he begins with an Onix and up next to Rhyhorn, our Venusaur takes them both down instantly with Razor Leaf. Next up, Giovanni sends out his Kangaskhan, and for some crazy reason, it goes for Rage. Rage is literally the worst move in Gen 1, locking the user into the move until the user wins the battle or until the user faints. Meanwhile, we go for Leech Seed, then Body Slam. When Body Slam doesn't quite knock out the Kangaskhan, we win with our Razor Leaf. Our win against Giovanni was far easier thanks to the Kangaskhan using Rage, which is an auto loss for any trainer. Up next, we get to battle our rival once again at Pokemon Tower, though this battle is medium difficulty. As usual, the rival starts off with his Pidgeotto, but our Dodrio proves to be the superior bird with Drill Peck. Then our rival brings out his Execute, and it goes down from a Drill Peck as well. Up next, the rival brings out something unexpected, a Gyarados. That Pokemon is scary since its starting moveset contains Dragon Rage and Hydro Pump, but it won't be a problem since we have a Venusaur. It instead goes for Bite while we use Leech Seed and Razor Leaf, letting us defeat Gyarados almost instantly. The rival's Kadabra is no problem since our Dodrio has strong moves that defeat it quickly, leading us to the rival's starter. It doesn't last too long against our starter since Venusaur is fully evolved. It only took 2 Body Slams to defeat the rival's Charmeleon. While this rival battle was a bit longer than the other rival battles, it was still easy, but that might change pretty soon. Next up, we get to challenge Koga's gym, but we don't face against poison types at first. That's right, the jugglers have psychic types on their teams. And while that's normally difficult to face, our Dodrio is able to get through them easily thanks to his strong same-type moves. Though, the second juggler has a Hypno, and that Pokemon has far better defenses. Luckily for us, our Dodrio is able to knock it out in one double edge, leading us to Koga. We got ourselves a Jinx, and since we gave it Psychic, that battle should be very easy. The first 3 Pokemon go down from 1 Psychic each. Even the Muck doesn't withstand Psychic in this battle. Though our sweeping kinda stops at the Weezing, which doesn't look good since Weezing has self-destruct. Though luckily for us, his Weezing goes for Smog and we don't even get poisoned from it. We then finish off Koga's Weezing with a Seismic Toss, getting us an easy 5th badge. Now that we make it to Silphco, we have a battle that some people struggle against, but it's not too difficult for me. However, since last time, the rival evolved his Pidgeotto, Kadabra, and Starter, so that'll add to the challenge for sure. Our rival starts off with Pidgeot and then an Execute, but our Jinx dispatches them with an Ice Punch each. Up next is the Gyarados, and while we start off with Leech Seed, it starts with Dragon Rage. Next turn we go for a Body Slam and get a Lucky Paralysis, then after it goes for Leer. We then go for Razor Leaf and defeat the Gyarados. Next comes Alakazam, and we switch to Dodrio and use Drill Peck. Luckily for us, we get a critical hit and shut down the Alakazam instantly. Last up, Charizard comes out, and while it looks like we don't have any answer for it, fire doesn't resist ice in this game. Our Jinx starts with an Ice Punch, and then Charizard goes for Ember. While we do get burned, it won't impact Jinx since it uses special attacks only. Next turn, we go for Seismic Toss and get the win. The 5th rival battle can be simple if you've trained enough for it. Up next, we clash with Giovanni a second time, and while his team is bigger than before, it's still quite easy. He begins with the Nidorino, but our Venusaur easily stops it with 2 Body Slams. Next comes the Kangaskhan from earlier, but its special can't withstand the wrath of Razor Leaf. Rhyhorn isn't much to worry about since it's weak to grass, and while Nidoqueen might be somewhat tricky to defeat, our Jinx easily defeats it with Psychic. After that battle, we saved Silphco and can move on to the other challenges. After surfing to Cinnabar Island and getting the secret key, we make it to Blaine's gym, though the gym is very much different from any other puzzle. The puzzle here is answering some questions with either a yes or a no, and if you get the answer wrong, you'll have to battle the trainer who's near the machine. The quiz machines themselves aren't hard to solve, and even if you get the answers wrong, your Pokemon can still get free experience, so either way it's a win. Now that we make it to Blaine himself, he begins with a Growlithe, and our Jinx defeats it with a Bubble Beam. Up next is his Ponyta, and our Bubble Beam doesn't quite knock it out, while his Because Ponyta does go for a fire spin, luckily it misses, letting our Jinx defeat the Ponyta with a seismic toss. Our Jinx tries to learn Thrash, but like I said, it won't do us any good. Up next is Blaine's Rapidash, and we mistakenly go for a seismic toss. But that's not bad since Rapidash's own fire spin also misses. The next turn, our Jinx goes for Bubble Beam, finishing off the Rapidash. Last up, we face against Blaine's Arcanine, which is especially scary for ice types. Even though we went for Bubble Beam on turn 1, it still didn't knock out the Arcanine on a critical hit. But luckily, Blaine went for a Super Potion without his Pokemon doing anything. Our second Bubble Beam got a critical hit and defeated the Arcanine, giving us a lucky win against the gym leader we weren't prepared for. Up next, we fly back to Saffron to challenge Sabrina's gym, but after going through some teleporting, we get stopped by a Chandler. Her team's no problem since the Ghastly line are physically frail like the Abra line, letting Dodrio quickly defeat both of the Chandlers, Ghastly and Haunter. Not much later, we get to challenge Sabrina with our Dodrio and sweep through the Kadabra, Mr. Mime, and Venomoth with Drill Peck. That leads us to Sabrina's Alakazam, and we choose to go for Toxic. Our Dodrio withstands a Psybeam, and I choose to swap the Jinx, who can handle Psybeam far better. Even though Alakazam repeatedly goes for Recover, it won't help since Toxic is steadily wearing down its health more and more. Our Jinx goes for Seismic Toss about 4 times in a row, which eventually knocks out the Alakazam and lets us win our 7th gym badge. The last gym is in Viridian City, but we couldn't access it until we've cleared 7 other gyms first. Our path to Giovanni is temporarily stopped by a Cool Trainer and a Black Belt, and their Pokemon are extremely weak. The Cool Trainer has a Rhyhorn, while the Black Belt has 2 Machoke and a Machop. We defeat the Cool Trainer and Black Belt with our Venusaur, letting us get to Giovanni one last time. The third battle against Giovanni starts off with a Rhyhorn, but isn't much to talk about. Up next is the Dugtrio, which despite being very fast, is physically frail and gets derailed by Dodrio's Drill Peck. Up next is Giovanni's Nidoqueen, and we send out our Venusaur. It uses a Body Slam on turn 1, which paralyzes the Nidoqueen instantly. The same turn, Giovanni goes for a Guard Spec, which won't really help Nidoqueen since my Venusaur knocks it out the following turn with Razor Leaf. Next up, his Nidoking comes out, and our Venusaur's Body Slam gets a critical hit. Nidoking follows it up with a nearly useless Poison Sting, letting Venusaur's Body Slam defeat it next turn. Last up, the Rhydon gets instantly knocked out by Venusaur's Razor Leaf, letting us have another easy win against Giovanni. Before we make it to the Pokemon League gate, our rival challenges us a 6th time, and this time he's not holding back. He starts off with his Pidgeot, and we send out our Jinx. We get a critical hit on Ice Punch the first turn, but I think it would have been a one-shot on Pidgeot anyways. Next up, our rival sends out a Rhyhorn, and it goes down from an Ice Punch as well. Execute comes out next, and our Dodrio knocks it out with a Drill Peck. Up next, Gyarados comes out, and we send Venusaur to use Leech Seed. The same turn, Gyarados goes for Dragon Rage, and we miss Razor Leaf, letting Gyarados get another free hit on us. The next turn, Venusaur goes for Body Slam and paralyzes the Gyarados, but that doesn't stop it from using Dragon Rage again. Then our Razor Leaf finally lands on Gyarados, and it goes for another Dragon Rage. While it's looking close, Leech Seed finishes off Gyarados. Alakazam comes out next, and we send out Dodrio. We go for Toxic on the first turn, but Alakazam is not playing around and goes for Psychic. Just like we did against Sabrina's Alakazam, we'll also do against the rival's Alakazam. We switch out to our Jinx and use Seismic Toss a few times, and soon Alakazam goes down from Toxic damage. Lastly, the Charizard comes out, and we switch to Dodrio. While it looks like Dodrio might lose, it gets a critical hit from its Drill Peck. The same turn, Charizard goes for Leer, but it doesn't matter since we almost defeat Charizard. Lastly, we go for Double Edge and defeat the Charizard, letting us have free access to Victory Road and prepare for the hardest trainers to face up against, the Elite Four. After some long, hard training, we finally make it to the Elite Four. What's most ironic is that the first battle of the Elite Four is Lorelei, a user of Ice types. The thing that makes this battle problematic is that the Ice type moves are extremely powerful. Not to mention Lorelei happens to have some Water types, meaning that some of them pose an imposing challenge. Anyway, Lorelei starts the battle with Dugong, and we send out our Venusaur. We begin with Sleep Powder to immobilize the Dugong, then we get to use Razor Leaf and knock it out. We repeat Razor Leaf against Cloyster and Slowbro, defeating them both just as quickly. Then next, Lorelei sends out her own Jinx, and we switch to Dodrio and use Double Edge. Though we get a critical hit there, letting us avoid an Ice Punch. Last up, Lorelei sends out her Lapras, and we switch to Jinx. We go for Psychic, and it only does a third. Lapras follows it up with a Body Slam. Since we didn't get paralyzed, we go for Psychic next, but for some weird reason, Lorelei goes for a Super Potion. Next we use Seismic Toss, but since Lapras has sky-high HP, it doesn't do too much. Lorelei repeats the Super Potion, so we're lucky we didn't get hit again. Learning from my mistake, we go for Psychic and defeat Lorelei. After the tough battle that was Lorelei, we make it to a laughably easy trainer to face against. While Bruno might look challenging on the surface, we should know that the fighting type in Gen 1 was dreadfully bad in offense and defense. So thanks to that, an otherwise imposing battle is instead one of the easiest in all of Kanto. Bruno starts off with an Onix, a Pokemon that has no business being in the league since it's extremely weak. After that, Bruno sends out a Hitmonchan, then a Hitmonlee, but both fighting types go down to one Drill Peck each. And guess what comes out next? That's right, another Onix! And watch out, such a difficult opponent to battle! Oh, and lastly, Bruno sends out his Machamp, and it goes down to one Drill Peck as well. While we effortlessly swept Bruno's team, that's probably going to stop when we reach Agatha. This might be a surprise to point out, but Agatha's a bit tricky thanks to her going for status or attacks. Most of the time, she opts for status. She begins with a Gengar and our Dodrio uses Drill Peck. Gengar hangs on from the Drill Peck, and while it's looking a bit worrying, Gengar goes for Nightshade. Our Dodrio's second Drill Peck defeats the Gengar, and up next, Agatha sends out her Golbat. We send out our Jinx, and when it used Ice Beam, it missed! Yeah, that's an example of the infamous 1 in 256 glitch, where a move that typically has 100% accuracy has a 1 in 256 chance to miss the opponent. It's especially annoying when you're facing up against an opponent that has an effective status move. Though, luckily for us, Golbat went for Wing Attack, letting our Jinx go for a second Ice Beam to instantly beat the Golbat. Up next, Agatha sends out her Haunter, then her Arbok next. Our Jinx defeats them both with one Psychic each, leading us to Agatha's second and last Gengar. Our Jinx somehow outspeeds the Gengar and almost defeats it with a Psychic as well, but Gengar goes for Confuse Ray to make Jinx hit itself. Though, to avoid hitting ourselves, we switch to Dodrio, and weirdly enough, Gengar goes for Dream Eater. On a Dodrio that's awake! What? Well, thanks to the computer's dumb choice, our Dodrio goes for Drill Peck to finish off the Gengar, letting us defeat the one Elite Four member whose challenge is luck-based. Last of the Elite Four, we make it to Lance. While Lance might look difficult on the surface, we have to remember that the Dragon type wasn't really much of a type in Gen 1. There were no type-based moves for Dragon, and it never got the same type on much better normal moves. So Lance is just mildly annoying at this point in the league. He begins with a Gyarados while we begin with Venusaur, and we go for Sleep Powder on turn 1. That lets us set up Leech Seed, and Gyarados is still asleep on turn 2. Next we go for Razor Leaf on turn 3, but Gyarados wakes up. Then we go for another Razor Leaf on turn 4, though Gyarados goes for Leer. That won't help it at all since Leech Seed drained the last bit of Gyarados' health, letting us defeat the Sea Snake. Next up, Lance sends out his Dragonair while we switch to Jinx. One thing that Dragon is most weak to is Ice, letting our Jinx take down both of Lance's Dragonair. After then, our Jinx tries to learn Blizzard, but I choose not to go for it since it's less power points than Ice Beam. Next up, Lance sends out Aerodactyl and we switch to Venusaur. Despite Aerodactyl being much faster than Venusaur, its bite doesn't flinch it, letting our Venusaur go for Sleep Powder. Aerodactyl stays asleep for 2 turns while our Venusaur knocks it out with 2 Razor Leafs in a row. Last up, Lance sends out his Dragonite and we switch back to Jinx. Despite being 4 levels lower, our Jinx outsped his Dragonite and knocks it out with 1 Ice Beam, giving us an easy win against the Dragon Master. Lance might have talked as if he was the champion, but the real champion is in the room past Lance himself. Let's go. Ironically enough, the champion just so happens to be our own rival, the same exact guy we've been battling since Pallet Town. But surprise aside, our rival starts off with his usual Pidgeot, but it's not much to talk about since our Jinx beats it. Up next, our rival sends out Alakazam and I switch to Dodrio, and you won't believe what I did. I made the dumb choice of going on the offensive instead of going for stall. Turn 1 goes very badly thanks to our Hyper Beam missing and Alakazam's Psybeam getting a critical hit, almost knocking out our Dodrio in 1 turn. The second Hyper Beam hits Alakazam and gets a critical hit, but despite knocking out Alakazam, it's still not looking good. Up next, Rhydon comes out, but it's another easy win for Venusaur. After that, our rival sends out his Executor, and I switch to Jinx due to Dodrio being too worn down. Our Jinx goes for Ice Beam, and while it didn't knock Executor out in 1 hit, we get lucky and only get hit by a Barrage, a useless normal move. Our next Ice Beam finishes off Executor, letting us make it to Gyarados one last time. Our Venusaur goes for Sleep Powder, but Gyarados wakes up that same exact turn. When that fails, we go for Leech Seed and Gyarados still goes for Leer. The next turn, our Venusaur misses Sleep Powder while taking a Dragon Rage. And after we go for our usual Razor Leaf, Gyarados goes for something we did not expect. Hyper Beam. Though, lucky for us, Gyarados' Hyper Beam did not get a critical hit, letting our second Razor Leaf finish Gyarados off while it recharges. Last up, our rival sends out his Charizard, and I send out my horribly weak Dodrio. While it landed a Drill Peck, it was still still weak enough to be finished off by the usually useless Rage. After Dodrio faints, we send out our Jinx, and despite it being 6 levels lower, it outspeeds the Charizard and knocks it out with an Ice Beam, letting us defeat the champion and finally clear this challenge. Now that we've finished the ideal team for Venusaur once again, I'll be covering new ideal teams for Blastoise and Charizard next. Like I said last year, Blastoise is the middle choice of starters. Does great at the first 2 gyms, but not so good against the 3rd or 4th gym due to electric and grass weaknesses. But regardless of that, Blastoise still has great coverage and is a solid choice for a starter, despite being overshadowed by other water types. Charizard is the weaker choice of starters, and it's mainly due to Charmeleon not doing good at the first 2 gyms. Rock resists most of Charizard's moves, while Water and Ice destroy Charizard, so that's something to watch out for. Only use Charizard if it's your favorite starter, because it can't do good without the utmost coverage given to its moveset. Hey look, that's all I got for now. If you enjoyed my update on the ideal team for Kanto, please give it a like or comment telling me what you enjoyed the most about this video. Until next time, have a good day.